afternoon, Reno. Recently, the sage-grouse has been taken off of the endangered species list. While this is a step in the right direction for conservationists, they still have a long way to go to get where they want, with nobody on the endangered species list. Now we have Jude.
I didn't watch the traffic report this morning.
Did you take I-80?
No.
You should have taken McCarran.
Yeah, I took Rock.
We're live.
Oh, live. Yes, Adam. Up first on this programming, we will be talking about habitat loss in the Nevada area. Habitat loss is when a habitat, like a forest or wetland, is so
Altered?
altered. It's altered so dramatically that it can no longer sustain the species that live inside of it. Plants and animals native to Nevada have been pushed out of their homes because of this. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Dan Hoddle, and I am a public affairs officer with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
How long have you been with this organization?
I've been with the Fish and Wildlife Service for about 3 years, but with the federal government for about 18.
Wow. What is your job, or what do you do here?
I'm the spokesperson and public relations officer, so what that means is I educate the public about what the Fish and Wildlife Service does across the country.
Okay. How many species in Nevada have been impacted due to loss of habitat?
We have almost 40 species that are protected by the Endangered Species Act in Nevada. About half of them are endangered species, about half of them are protected species or threatened species, and then some of those are even plant species. So we have a number of wildlife like greater sage grouse, and we have a number of fish like the Lahontan cutthroat trout, which is also the state fish in Nevada. And then we also have spring snails, we have amphibians, frogs and toads. So there's a lot of different things that are affected by habitat loss, and that habitat loss means a lot of different things.
Why should we protect these species, and what do they offer to Nevada?
Well, in the case of a lot of our threatened endangered species, these are species that if we don't do something to protect their habitat, especially in Nevada, which is one of the driest states in the country, we could run the risk of losing these animals altogether. And that means that there may only be a handful of them left in some cases. So if we don't do things to actively protect their habitat, we could find these species getting so degraded that they may not even be present one day. And we just for the support and the health of the overall ecosystem, we don't want any species to completely disappear.
Is habitat loss the main factor in the endangerment of these species, or is there something else?
Habitat loss to these species is pretty important because it comes down to threats, human threats. So things like overdevelopment of houses and construction on new properties where ground has to be cleared way for housing developments and things like that. These are all disturbances, there could be disturbances to habitat of threatened and endangered animals. You also have overgrazing, too many animals grazing out on the landscape where there's protected species. You have wildfires, you have other threats that are human caused. So habitat loss is probably half of the equation. The other half is things like predation, other animals eating the animals or hurting their habitat or their population numbers that way.
What could the average civilian do to help protect these species?
Well, the Fish and Wildlife Service does a lot on a federal level to ensure things like mining and oil and gas exploration, development, commercial development, and things like that are go through a pretty stringent process of identifying what kind of species might be in an area that needs to be developed or is looking to be a project for development. We also look at, we enforce the regulations of the Endangered Species Act to ensure that some of these projects are done smartly so that people are either minimally impacting or not impacting animals or wildlife, fish at all. But as far as the average citizen, it's things like just adhering to rules. So in the state of Nevada, which is almost largely owned by the federal government, where you have a lot of public lands and recreational area. So you can just follow rules by not riding motorbikes and ATVs through areas where there might be protected species, or just paying attention to fishing regulations so that you're not overfishing, or not bringing in aquatic species and putting them in lakes and rivers and streams so that it hurts aquatic habitats. So there's a lot of things that's just pretty much following the rules of what wildlife agencies, state agencies set forth about what's beneficial for Nevada wildlife.
Okay.
Traffic was a little rough today.
The way you drive, I can imagine.